But wait a minute, Paul gives us a way out. He says, watch this, the Christian's reproduction, it can be flipped. Man, he said, man, we can uproot all that stuff and we can get this thing right. Can I get a witness here? He said, watch this, if you want to flip the script, he says, just start sowing some love. Are you hearing what I'm telling you? And the more love you sow, y'all, it will take over all of that hate and all of that envy and all of that resentment. Keep sowing some love and keep sowing some kindness and keep sowing some joy. And I mean, let's be real. To be productive, reproductive, it takes effort. I mean, ask any farmer. Any farmer will tell you, if I'm trying to reproduce some corn, man, the first thing I got to do is plant some corn. But if I'm going to plant it, I just can't go out there and stand on the soil and play in my mind, you know what, I want to plant some corn, I got to do this, and I need to do this, and I want to produce a whole lot of ears of corn and a whole lot of stalks of corn, and man, I can see my garden full of corn. That's cool. But if you don't plant no seed, before you start the seed, if you don't get the earth right, if you don't break up the soil and put some, you got to make an investment is all I'm saying. You got to spend some time doing it. And so watch this. If you're going to sow love, you got to spend some time doing it. How can I get this thing right? Maybe you got to spend some time on your knees. Maybe you got to spend some time in the Word. Maybe you got to spend some time by yourself to get this thing right. I don't know what it is, but I do know that you've got to spend some time getting it right. Christian reproduction. Can I get a witness here? Because in reality, that's what our relationship with God is all about. What are you saying, Pastor? I'm saying in reality, Larry, our relationship with God is all about being reflective of what the Spirit of God has done and is doing in our life. When folk look at you and me, they ought to know we're Christians by our love. I mean, when folk look at you and me, they ought to know that the joy of the Lord is our. Man, when folk look at you and me, they ought to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that we have been kind ye one to another. Can I get a witness here? And I'm going to get there in a minute. I'm going to show you why. Because, man, I want us to understand what our relationship with the Lord is all about. Our relationship with the Lord is all about, gets the backdrop of this sowing and this reaping. Dr. Frazier, the Lord wants us to sow the right stuff so that we can reap the right things. Can I get a witness here? And so I see the Christian's reality, and we see the Christian's reproduction. But then there's one more thing that Paul deals with, and that is the Christian's responsibility. As Christians, men and women of faith, there's a responsibility that we have. As a child of God, I've got a certain responsibility. As children of God, y'all, we got certain responsibilities. Can I get a witness here? Y'all think I'm tripping? It's in here, the text. Let's look at the next verse. Watch this, verse 9, because we just did 8, right? Well, look at verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who are the household, King James, of faith. Now, I get this because our responsibility spans over these two verses. And here's the thing. First off, the Christian's responsibility in terms of our relationship with God, watch this, Christian responsibility is that we must press on and encourage others by our actions to do the same. Press on and encourage others by our actions to do the same. Now let me break down the two. Press on. I'll be the first one to tell you that every now and then this Christian walk gets difficult. Can I get a witness here? I mean, let's just be real. Come on, we can be real. Every now and then, man, we find ourselves in between a rock and a hard place. Every now and then, those works of the flesh, y'all, those things, that natural stuff, man, it comes up. And man, I know how it is in a very real sense. The Lord said, I'm going to reap what I'm sowing. Man, I'm trying to sow love. I'm trying to sow joy. I'm trying to sow goodness. I'm trying to sow mercy. And the more mercy I sow, man, the more love I sow, the more joy I sow. Man, it doesn't look like I'm getting anything in return. I'm sowing joy. I'm sowing love. And people still seem to be hating on me. People still seem to be disliking me. People still seem to be tugging at me. I still can't seem to get ahead. I mean, what in the world do you do when you find yourself like that? I can't speak for y'all, but I can speak for me. I've been in that kind of situation where I'm doing the best I can for God. I'm coming to church early. I'm leaving late. I'm working my post on ministry. I'm doing the best I can to encourage the household of faith, and it looks like it's not working out for me. Is there anybody in here besides me who feels like that every now and then? Frazier, I'm doing my best, the best that I can, and this thing ain't working out for my good. Is there anybody? Y'all ain't got to look at me like y'all all holy. I know it's somebody in here beside me who's had that kind of experience. So I go back to my question. What do you do when you find yourself in a dark night? What do you do when you find yourself not reaping what you've been sowing, if will, like you think you ought to reap? What do you do? Hey, you got to keep the faith. You got to stay the course. You got to stick with it. You got to stay in it. You got to keep on praying. You got to keep on fasting. You got to stay in the race. You got to keep on loving. You got to keep on sowing joy. You got to keep on sowing peace. You got to keep on keeping on. Look at your neighbor. Help me preach this thing and say, keep on keeping on. What you got to do, Sister Jameson, you got to stick with it. You got to be steadfast. Man, I'm almost feeling good right here. You got to be steadfast. You got to be unmovable. Always abiding in the work of the Lord. For as much as you know, your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Man, I didn't sow my love in vain. I didn't sow my joy in vain. I haven't been sowing peace in vain. I haven't been sowing happiness in vain. No, what I've been doing for the Lord has not in vain. Because the text says, at the proper time, y'all ain't hearing what I'm telling you. At the appointed time, it may not be right now. I might not see it right now because of the darkness I'm going through. But the text promises me that there is a proper time. Y'all better get the connotation now. Proper. He said proper. See, there are just some things that God's not going to bring about until he brings about in you what he needs to bring about. Okay, I say it a different way. There's some things that God's not going to bring about for you until he brings about in you what he needs to bring about. Somebody shout yes. So at the proper time, when I've stuck with it, when I continue to dig and continue to plant, that is, continue to sow at the proper time, despite my situation, despite my circumstance, at the proper time. I'm going to reap a harvest. Y'all know what harvest is, right? Harvest is multidimensional. Harvest is more than one thing. when I reap my harvest, I'm going to bring in a whole lot of luck. See, that's the thing about sowing and reaping. When I sow, I get more than I sow. I sowed 1 kernel of corn. I got a whole stalk of corn back. And on that stalk of corn, I got several ears of corn. And on the several ears of corn, I got a whole lot of kernels of corn. Y'all better hear what I'm telling you. In due season, at the proper time, I will, you will, we will reap a harvest. So, it's my responsibility. Praise you, it's our responsibility. Baptists, it's just our responsibility. Keep on keeping on. Huh? But I ain't just pressing the way, but I got another responsibility. That's my responsibility. In terms of my relationship with God, I got to keep on keeping on. But then we got a responsibility one to another. I told you it gets hard sometimes. But it's good to have another brother. Y'all, I'm trying to contain myself here because we don't do enough of this in the church. We don't do enough of this. But we got a responsibility to each other. I'm serious. I ain't just talking about accountability. I'm saying responsibility. We got a responsibility one to another. The responsibility is this right here. When I see my brother wading in the water, when I see my brother falling down, I got a responsibility to help lift him up. See, these verses 7 through 10, are emphatically connected to verses 1 through 5. In verses 1 through 5, Paul talks about how a spiritual brother, one who's filled with the Spirit, has a responsibility to another brother. He has the Spirit, but somehow the flesh, the natural, something has taken over. And so we got a responsibility as a spiritual brother. Spiritual brother to spiritual brother, spiritual sister to spiritual sister. Y'all, we got a responsibility one to another. That when we see each other going down, that we don't help you go down. But when we see each other going down, that we ought to run to one another's aid and help lift each other up. Can I get a witness here? No, I tell you what, we got to have it to do. I'm finna meddle, I'm a meddle. But we'll run to a brother. We'll see a brother down. And we'll tell you, I told you so. I knew you wasn't going to make it. I told you to come out. No, you can't go. He know he down. He know he done messed up. You ain't giving him no news. But when you go to him, instead of telling him what he already knows, tell him something he might not know. Tell him God still loves you. Tell him God can make a way. Tell him you can get up. You can be healed. You can be delivered. You can be set free. Hey, we got to lift them up. It's our responsibility. Listen. We seem to got this thing backwards in here. But it's almost like, if I see my brother, it's almost like weightlifting. I see my brother, he's got some weight on him. And it was weight that he used to be able to handle. I mean, he was pushing that weight up nice and easy. Had us breathing together. He was pushing that weight up nice and easy. But he held on to the weight a little too long. And you know, I'm looking on and I see that the weight is getting a little bit heavy. I mean, he's lifting it, y'all, but he's struggling a little bit now with the same weight that was giving him no trouble. Weights like that, y'all. Whenever you hold and wait too long, the longer you hold it, although the weight has not changed, the heavier the weight gets. Am I right about it here? But here's my thing. The Lord teaches us a profound principle. Matter of fact, y'all, I learned it even in high school. And that is, when my partner, the person I'm connected to, whenever I see him lifting weight and the weight has gotten too heavy for him to bear, y'all, I then am responsible to come alongside him. And I may not be able, good God Almighty, to lift all the weight up off of him. But I can sure enough put my hand on the weight and give him a much needed relief. I can put my hand on the weight and help him to bear the weight that's got him burdened down. And I've changed the dynamic of the weight that he's trying to bear, because his strength, along with my strength, we're able, no better yet, he's able to overcome the weight that's bearing him down. Now, y'all didn't hear what I just said, because if you heard it right, it would have been your shouting cue. I said my strength, along with his strength, he's able now. I said he's able. My friend is able to handle the weight that's been bearing him down. Ain't God all right? I'm not handling the weight for him, but he's handling that weight for himself. Ain't the Lord all right? What are you trying to tell us, Pastor? I'm just simply trying to tell somebody in the house that you ought to fulfill your responsibility to your sister and your brother. Those who are in the household of faith, what does that look like practically? Well, if there is a brother who you used to see in the church, but 3 weeks have passed by and you have not seen him, oh, you ought not hesitate to pick up that phone and to dial his number and say, brother, I'm wondering where you are. I'm just concerned about you. I haven't seen you in a while. If you know that there is a sister who used to be faithful on the ministry and now somehow she's disappeared, well, you've got a responsibility to pick that phone up and give that sister a call. I don't mean to meddle, but I'm just concerned about you. Is everything all right? Yeah, we've got a responsibility. Ain't God all right? Paul said, be that way toward everybody. Everybody. Help everybody where you can lend a helping hand. But sure enough, in the household of faith, you ought to encourage your brother and encourage your sister. Because watch this now, when encouragement in the household of faith is going on, those who are on the outside will peep and look in on the inside. And when they see us right on the inside, they'll want to become a part of the inside too. Somebody shout it. Shout it. Oh, Lord, oh, Lord. relationship with the Lord is all about. We are God's hands and we're God's feet. We are God's mouth. Somebody ought to shout yes. Since we're God's mouth, we ought to speak blessings and not curses. Since we're God's hands, we ought to lend a helping hand. Since we're God's feet, every now and then we gotta go to where our brother is and bring them back to the altar of God. Yeah. Get down on our knees together right here and pray, pray, and the prayer of faith will heal that brother. The prayer of faith will redeem that sister. That's what our relationship with God is really all about. If you're sitting in the pew and doing nothing, you're not fulfilling your relationship. If you come in the church and just sitting down idly by, you don't know what your relationship with God is all about. Ain't God all right? So Paul says it's wrapped up in the reality of the Christian reality. What you sow is what you reap. When you sow, you're gonna reap. Ain't God all right? It's wrapped up in the Christian reproductivity. Ain't the Lord good? I just can't do what I want to do. I gotta do what God says do. It's wrapped up in the Christian responsibility. I love you. You love me. We're all a part of God's family. So when you're well, I'm well. When you hurt, I hurt. Where we go one, we go all. Yeah, 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 yeah. I just want to see us reflect the love of God, Jesus Christ. Yo, because that's what our relationship with God is all about. We didn't get saved to just be saved. We got saved to help get others saved, others delivered, and others set free. Y'all, I know it can be difficult at times, but that should not nullify the fact that it's our responsibility, that it's our reality. We ought to reproduce it in every area, in every arena of our life.
Don't you want that? Well, it starts right here today. Let's not just talk about it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. This week, let's do it. Put it in practice. There's somebody you know that should be here today, but they're not. You've missed them for the last few weeks. Pick that phone up, call them. You ain't concerned about church membership. You're concerned about the welfare. And I know how it is. I know how it is. No, you ain't calling to gossip. You ain't calling, no, baby. Baby girl, I'm not calling you to talk about this and that. I'm calling because I'm concerned about you. I don't want to, I'm concerned about you. What you give is what you get. Just show that love and leave the rest to God. Are you hearing what I'm telling you? This brother, this sister, they ain't got to be in this church. Maybe there's some brothers, some sisters, you just know they're out in the they're out in the world. They were in the church, they were with God, and somehow they've slipped. I ain't just talking about folk in this church. I'm talking about people who are of the household of faith. What you gonna do? I asked them this morning, same question I asked you, we're done. My time is far spent. We still been pretty good time. Time far spent. But what are you going to do with the information that you've received today? What you gonna do with it? We can ignore it, or we can apply it. I believe this. We're gonna reap what we sow. Will you hear what I'm saying? So our deacons, our ministers are coming in. And listen to this real quick. Sister Ruth Williams, Wells, and I were talking not too long ago. And I alluded to this a few weeks ago. I told you.